Coming up on The Returned.
Dreams are like our personal guide and our roadmap to help us in our destiny and our purpose. Dreams are the great equalizer. It's like water. Everybody has dreams, and dreams connect cultures, connect us. If there's a recurring dream that keeps coming, that's God, that's the spirit, that's creator, that's higher power, that's your source calling to you saying, okay, there's something important I'm trying to get your attention with that is a now present thing. It's like a present reality. And if you don't, it's going to continue to knock until it grabs your attention.
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. Here's to everything we'll discover together. Hi, and welcome to The Return. Today, I am so excited to dive into the world of dreams and the mysteries of the night season with our very special guest, Caleb Matthews, an intuitive seer and dream interpreter who has helped countless people decode the hidden language of their dreams. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, MJ. This is a great opportunity, great privilege to speak on one of my favorite topics of all time, which is understanding mysteries of the night season and the realm of dreams, which really cool factoid to throw out there to the audience. We spend 1/3 of our lives sleeping and dreaming. So by the time each of us reaches 60 years of age, doing the math, that's 20 years out of the 60 dreaming. So with the See link, this is a message I love bringing to the audience, to see the link between the night season and also translating that to their waking hours to apply that to their lives. So thank you for having me on the show. I'm so excited to get into this today.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Before we get into the heart of today's conversation, could you start by sharing a brief introduction of who you were before your journey began and how you discovered your develop abilities as a seer and a dreamer?
Sure, could definitely go into that. I love this question. This is one of my favorite ones to answer. To do that, let's jump back in the time warp, the time machine, and go back into my childhood where it all began, which most of our spiritual and seeing journeys as human beings usually begin at development childhood phase. Mine began when I was 6 years old. So one of my first vivid memories in life, and people say, Caleb, what's one of your first memories you have as a child? Well, it was actually dreams. It still is dreams. And being able to remember, I remember one night going to sleep and my parents tucking me into bed, mom kissing me goodnight, and then just closing the door. And I would start to fall asleep. And you're familiar, I know you are, because we just talked about this before the show, but many of our listeners are, or they may not be familiar with the term lucid dreaming. Well, I began to fall asleep. I wasn't quite asleep, but I wasn't awake. And I began to hear like audible tinkling of like chimes, even though there was no wind chimes in my bedroom. And it was a beautiful melodious sound. And I just felt a sense of comfort of, okay, like there's a frequency and a harmony of the divine and a greater realm than I know in the natural that's watching out over my life. That was my introductory phase as a 6-year-old, because I was homeschooled. So my context for this was, okay, like I'm homeschooled. We're learning about the Hebraic method of dreams and understanding mysteries. But I said to my mom, what is this? And so she began to really teach me from a young age, me and my 2 older brothers, on what's happening in the night season and also following the Hebraic method. But I know it's a long answer to your first question, but I really inserted myself at the age of 6. Well, the spiritual realm kind of intercepted my life, and in a glorious way, because I felt like I wasn't alone, and I felt like I had, that big brother figure watching over my life.
Caleb, so you speak of just the night season, and if you could just explain, so personally, I've never heard of that before, the night season. So could you just tell us where that came from?
Sure. Yeah. So the night season really, like I look at the night season as one of the seasons. Of course, we talked about scientifically a third of our lives are spent dreaming. So that's the first phase, is scientifically. So we think, okay, a third of my life is going to be spent in this place. Just like the four seasons, summer, spring, fall, and winter,
Okay.
the night is a season. Like, at least in my perspective, it's a season. Just like the daytime is a season, or there's a season of you living in a city or me living in a city. The night season is that season of time, because it is a gap of time where we're no longer awake, we're sleeping, our minds are in a rest place, and that creates an avenue, an environment for us to be able to be more receptive to what's in the unseen, what's in the spiritual realm, what's in that place. And the night season is also a term that is explained in the Hebraic method, in the ancient texts, the scriptures, as well as history as well too. So really the term night season not only came from my physical experience and my personal experience, but also it was a terminology that I was raised in, looking at history, people, what we know of, like Harriet Tubman, George Washington, to Winston Churchill, Joan of Arc, people that in history would know of, okay, they did great exploits, but a lot of people would be fascinated to know, if they don't know already, that many of these figures that we hold dear actually were people who dreamed vividly in that night season.
Ah, I see. So in your view then, what are dreams exactly? Where do they come from? And when there are messages, are they random or are they something more?
Good question.
Sorry,
This is
I
great
put
questions.
3 all in one.
This is great. I love this. We can look at the MPA perspective. Are you familiar with the MPA?
No, I'm not.
So mind if I elaborate with you in the audience on that?
Absolutely. Please do.
So the MPA is multiple perspective advantage. So it's like different spotlights on a similar playing field. And with dreams in my experience and in my interpretation, my perspective comes from 3 different sources. That can come from ourselves. So what I mean by that, as an example, is, say I imagine before I go to sleep, I'm going to win the lottery. I'm going to win the lottery. I'm going to win the lottery. And then I dream of winning the lottery. Well, that's probably from my own soul. That's not something from some other divine source or inspiration, because I was projecting that onto my antenna. That's coming from me. Whereas another possible angle could be, maybe you pass by somebody in the street who is an alcoholic, and then you dream about like some alcoholic binge, and you're not, oh, I don't drink alcohol, or I'm not an alcoholic. Well, that's coming from maybe somebody else's negative energy that you're picking up around you, and that's not necessarily you. And then there's another where it could come from what I call the divine. So God, creator, spirituality, where you just fall asleep, you have this crazy dream where it's like, wow, I don't watch movies. That came up out of nowhere. Like, what is this? This is so lifelike. It's like Avatar, where you're like reaching out to touch it and it feels real. Those dreams tend to, in my experience, especially the ones that are full of positivity and inspiration, come from God. In the flip sense, there can be dreams that come from the adversary, or, the devil, or darkness, or whatever your terminology is in that, where maybe you're dreaming of something where someone's chasing you and trying to attack you. And maybe that's like an assignment where it's like, okay, this is a lie, but not necessarily what your actual destiny or purpose is. So there's many different sources, and dreams, I believe, ultimately, the ones that direct us in our life for a purpose, they come from God, the creator, the divine, the spirit of life, the spirit of God. And even those dreams that may be negative, I believe it's like a filter. Like when you go down to the river and you pan for gold and you have to get through the muck to get to the gold, even those bad dreams that get through the filter, even those have a purpose. And there's a whole different angle. We can go on to that later in our talk as well, where even bad dreams do have a flip side. But that's my long answer, but they do come from different sources in my interpretation.
And so what are dreams?
Dreams are a code in the night season that is like a scroll or a letter. Like, before the pre-days of email, when you went to the mailbox and you're like, oh my goodness, I could hardly wait to get a letter in the mail from grandpa or grandma, or that
Isn't that true?
your family members traveling on the road, going to some exotic place or city or traveling. Like I remember when my dad would go on business trips and he would go to like Montreal or to like Toronto or somewhere else in Canada, right? I was like, okay, Dad, hardly wait, send me a postcard, send me a postcard. And I would hardly wait to get to the mailbox because I knew that there was going to be a message there from my dad or from my grandpa or from my family member. Dreams are the same way because what we see in the natural is just a reflection of what's in the unseen. Like you're like as an artist, I know talking with you as well before the podcast, an art piece comes from that unseen realm. Like it comes from that well of inspiration. Dreams are no different. What we see in the natural, much of it is an inspiration of what came from the unseen. And dreams are like our personal guide and our roadmap to help us in our destiny and our purpose.
Oh, I love dreaming. There was a time in my life where I just couldn't wait to go to bed just to dream. Like
Absolutely.
I just loved it. But before I get on to something else, I just want to see is dream. So basically, when you go somewhere in a dream, are you going somewhere? Is there another dimension that you're going to? Like, because it really does seem real.
Yeah.
It
I,
seems it almost seems more real than
yep.
here
Yep.
sometimes, honestly.
I'm on the same page as you within that. You
Okay.
know, our spirituality as far as source may be different in our interpretation of that, but as far as this idea of they're more real and there's another dimension, absolutely. I believe in this life, we're all living this life, and no matter what one's spirituality, interpretation of their guide or source or God or creator is, we're all on this journey together. And in that journey, we're in a physical avatar, and this life, in my view, is a appetizer to the main course. Like this isn't the end of the journey, and we get little glimpses when we go to sleep, where we have these dreams and these encounters and these experiences that tell us of another realm, another like superior realm over this realm. And just to give an example of this, like when my grandpa passed away, I was super bummed because, you know, he passed away from cancer about, I guess it's like 8-9 years ago now. Time's just flying. But, you know, I really love my grandpa, and near the end of his life, he was going through chemo, and I had this opportunity to go down and visit him because I knew that he only had a few weeks left to live. And he said on to me on the phone one day, Caleb, please don't come and see me because you wouldn't want to see me like I am. I want you to remember me when I was strong and not like frail and weak, and just please respect my wishes and just don't come to me physically, but continue to talk to me on the phone. I was gutted because I knew that his time on earth was coming to a close, but I wanted to respect his wishes. So I said, okay, Grandpa, I'll respect those wishes. He passed away, fast forward a few weeks after his death, and I go to visit my grandma with my mother. And my mother, by the way, my mother who taught me about dreams and raised me as a homeschooler, she's still my best friend, by the way. My mother is also a seer, somebody who vividly dreams in the night season. So we went to go visit my grandma and comfort my grandma in Surrey, back when she lived in Surrey. And that night I prayed, God, you know, I know Grandpa said that he didn't want me to come and visit, but I can't help but feel like I missed out on that closure. I really could use some closure right now because I feel like I didn't get closure. That's a prayer I just prayed to God. It's like, God, I could use some closure. Please speak to me in the night season. And so I fell asleep and I had this vivid dream that felt so real, like I was with Grandpa again. And here's what the dream happened in the dream. I stepped into this light, like this beautiful light, almost like you hear about in those NDE experiences where someone's approaching the light. And my grandpa stepped from the light and he looked like old Grandpa, but he looked like the young man in his portraits during the World War II portraits. So he was young, yet he was old again. Like it was like that cartoon where, you know, Simba looks into the water and sees Mufasa and you see the ripples of the water. Like his face was rippling and he looked old, but he looked young. Like he looked both at the same time. I'm not sure if I'm getting this across clearly, but he was both. I
think you are.
He was both at the same time. And many of our viewers or listeners right now may have had these experiences with those who have passed on and wondering, what could these mean? Well, in this encounter, my grandpa came to me and said, Caleb, how are you? And I said, I'm good, Grandpa. How are you? And we talked and we exchanged, talking about life. And I told him I was training at the gym at that time and really training for runway international modeling because I was a model in a modeling agency at the time. And he's like, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. So he reached out with his hand, and I'll never forget this, and he touched underneath my ribs and he tickled me underneath my ribs. And we both had a good laughing time. And he just touched my ribs and just smiled at me. And I felt, wow, like an impartation happened in that moment where Grandpa reached beyond and was able to give me one last touch and gift. And I felt like, I woke up from that. I was like, God, I'm so thankful. I was like, what could that mean? So I ran to my mom, I asked my mom, I was like, what do you think this means? And so we explored back into the Hebraic texts. And in the scriptures in Genesis, in the Garden of Eden, it says that woman was made from the rib of man, right? Like the ribs. There's something powerful in the ribs.
You brought tears to my eyes.
And like there's a creativity. I love it. There's a creativity that comes from the ribs. Like, when like someone takes a deep breath in and they feel like that sharp breath in the ribs, like that's where the breath comes from. That's where the life comes from. And I felt like my grandpa was able to reach me and say, Caleb, I'm imparting life to your breath, to your spiritual journey, and I'm proud of you. And at the end of that encounter, my grandpa said to me, Caleb, I only have a few moments, but I just wanted to be here with you. And that was it. And I was like, that's why I believe, to go back full circle, those encounters truly make me believe that we are not just here in an earth suit and we end and clock out and that's it. There is a realm of the spiritual that is here to guide us to walk in our purpose, to reach the purpose to which we were created. That's the C-link, why I named my company C-link, because there's a link that we are to see in our realms of dreams that we need to apply to our waking lives, because that's what it's all about.
I often have dreams like that. So I've been having dreams like that since I was little, but just most recently. So every time someone passes, I see them. So I don't just see them in dreams, I see them in, standing there or here, whatever, right? So I see, but in my dreams, they're always there. And I had an ex-husband that died that came to me every single night in my dreams. And it was unreal. I literally thought, what am I doing here? It got to the point where I felt like I didn't even want to tell him because I was remarried. And I was like, this is so strange because it felt so real when I was with him and he was apologizing to me. So I thought it was really profound. It was extremely real, but he would be in every single dream. Sometimes he would just be looking at me. Sometimes he wouldn't be saying anything. You could just see that he was there in the dream. And it's like, so I dream like that. I dream like you. So I must be a seer.
If you have those, my thing is there's dreamers, because everyone dreams. Unless you have like sleep apnea or some sort of problem with sleeping, every person has dreams. But there's a difference between, and I know you can appreciate this, MJ, there's a difference between dreaming and being a dreamer versus like having the lifestyle of the office of a dreamer or a seer or somebody, like just like an artist, right? Like I can create an art piece. It's not going to be like I'm an artist or a Picasso, and then there's like a Picasso that's actually, it's part of their design to be an artist. It's like that with dreamers. Everyone dreams, but there are those that have a special gift where dreaming's just part of their makeup, and that's where we're at.
Okay, so tell us about you, that special makeup that makes you different from everyone else.
Yeah, it's really from the young age, I figured, okay, if like I'm having these dreams and writing them down, journaling them. By the way, note to the audience, if you don't keep a journal next to your bed, you need to keep a journal next to your bed, because it is just something that is going to activate, like scientifically, like metaphysically, when we put words down on paper of things that we see in our dreams. This is what is activating just that spiritual unseen realm when we make a contract. I know I'm going in all different directions here, but this will make sense here.
You're doing great.
Yeah, it's there's the 3 C's that I talk about, which is contracts, construct, and conformity. And when we make a contract, when we start to write something down, like in a contract, we're binding something. We're binding something and we're activating something. And a lot of people, when I see them in dream fairs or like conventions or festivals or in dream interpretation, they say, oh, Caleb, Catherine, because by the way, my mother, she interprets with me when we go to these events because I believe in the power of team. When we're interpreting and someone says, I don't dream a lot, like I can't remember the last time I dreamed, like first question that we ask them is, do you keep a journal? And it stuns me how so many people do not keep a journal next to their bed and they expect to receive more. It's like if you go to the construction site and you're like, all right, I want to build this house. Well, where are your tools? If you don't have any tools, you're not going to be able to build the house. It's the same thing with dreams. So growing up, as I started to write down my dreams, I figured, okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is starting to happen on a nightly basis. And I began to ask my mom growing up, I'm like, okay, is this normal? And she said, well, of course, dreams is something that everybody experiences, but it's more supernaturally above normal to have regular occurring dreams, especially ones where you're feeling like Avatar or like the Matrix, where like it's real. It's like, okay, you have to shake yourself up when you wake up from it because you're like, okay, that felt more real than this world. But I started to understand from a young age that this was more something that was part of me, part of what I call the DNA of design. Because I believe that every single human being on the planet, you, MJ, me, Caleb, our audience that's listening to this podcast and watching on YouTube right now, has a DNA of design that is specific to them, that is unique to them, that will connect their calling and their purpose to their lifetime goals and their purpose. And dreams, this great code book to be able to decode. That's what I love it. Dreams are the great equalizer. It's like water. Everybody has dreams, and dreams connect cultures, connect us. And yes, to answer your question, for me, that this for me became very much a part of my life on a frequent basis. And that's why I needed that homeschooling environment. I'm so thankful for my mother and my father, especially my mother who raised me and my 2 older brothers in the Hebraic method of dream interpretation. Now, the audience may be thinking by now, Caleb, you've mentioned Hebraic method of dream interpretation many times. What the heck does that mean? Well, I'm going to explain to you. The Hebraic method of dream interpretation is like those stories in the Bible and the scriptures, like Joseph, Joseph in the many-colored dream coat, like it's a show on Broadway, but there's a real story of Joseph where, he had the coat, his brothers got jealous, they threw him down a well, went to Egypt, and then eventually interpreted dreams for the Pharaoh that the Pharaoh couldn't understand, and God gave him the interpretation. Daniel had that dream reinterpreted for Nebuchadnezzar, where he's dreamed of the statue. And what's crazy is that a third of the scriptures are actually dreams, visions, and trances and supernatural experiences. Now, the religious church likes to say, oh, well, that stuff doesn't belong to God, it belongs to darkness, or it belongs to the occult. No, actually, this is a heritage for people that actually, if you're claiming to follow the scriptures, this is in the scriptures. Like the whole book of Revelation is one big crazy encounter, but that's another topic in itself.
Oh, is it ever?
Yeah. But yeah, it's part of the makeup of my life. It is for sure.
It sounds exciting. Caleb, do you remember the first time you interpreted a dream, and did it have a profound impact on someone? If you can share a story.
Yeah. One of the first times I remember interpreting a dream for someone, I'll just use an example of outside of my own household, because in our own household, my mother, my brothers, us, we interpreted for each other. But and we had some
What
profound,
a great household.
It was a great household, and we had many profound impacts and encounters with each other. But for the sake of the audience of, okay, Caleb, how did this translate outside of the household in life outside of the home? I want to get into that example. You're familiar with Salem, Massachusetts, and haunted happenings?
Absolutely.
I knew you would be. And when I was 18 years old, my 2 brothers and we attended a post-secondary school called Streams Academy in New London, New Hampshire. And part of our training was understanding the voice of the Creator, of God, of hearing God's voice, prayer, meditation, monastic living, but also following the Hebraic method of dream interpretation into another level. And part of our outreach and part of when we were sitting in front of people to practice what we had learned was sitting in Salem during haunted happenings in these tents, in these booths, and we'd have a sign up there that would say free dream interpretation, free spiritual readings, and we'd have people of all different kinds of spiritualities come curious. It was like the Mardi Gras of spirituality, a huge festival that goes over for 1 month, but especially that 1 week, and you know what I'm talking about. and it's just like people would come and they would share their dreams, or they want like a spiritual reading. You'd have New Agers, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, Christians, polytheists, atheists, like you name it, any type of spirituality or belief system was there in that space. And we'd have people sitting in front of us. And I remember one of the dreams that I interpreted for somebody even back when I was 18, sitting there as a young intern, just learning how to interpret dreams at Streams Academy. And it was a man that was there with his girlfriend, but he had this profound experience where he dreamed and he was lucid. And he dreamed of this friendly face that reached out and touched his forehead and kind of made a sign of the cross on his forehead. And then his forehead began to like almost like drip with oil, like oil that you put like on anointing oil or just perfumes. And then he woke up from that encounter and he was in a sweat. He just felt like God had reached through the veil and had touched him, saying, "I'm marking your life. I'm marking your mind, I'm marking your purpose, and you're not alone." And from the bits and pieces I can remember from this guy's background story shared later is that he came out of a profoundly traumatic, religious abuse where he had experienced that in the institutional church, but he had never had a concept of actually God reaching out and wanting to be his friend outside the confines of religion. And so I explained to him that God's speaking to you. He wants to mark your life, not in a way where he's saying go back into a building or a temple or a church or anything like that, but follow with God because that's what the God of the scriptures and Jesus would want you to do, is walk with God like in Eden again. And he was, wow, this is opening up my mind, and he just sobbed and wept. But that was the first dream I can remember outside of my own household interpreting for somebody, and he was undone, and he just like God, just come into my life. I want to be able to partner with you for my purpose. And that really was what the first encounter dream I can remember interpreting for somebody. It had an amazing impact.
That is unbelievable. I wanted to skip ahead a teeny bit because something just came to mind, and I'm wondering about reoccurring dreams. When someone has the dreams, that come constantly. When I was a little girl, I had a reoccurring dream. Every single night I dreamt the same dream. Until I didn't, I don't remember when it ended, but I do specifically remember dreaming. So I'm curious, why do we have reoccurring dreams?
It's a very, very good question. And
I don't think it's a black and white answer. I can tell you that. Obviously.
No, it is definitely not. It is one that has many different layers to the onion. Like I spoke on a podcast recently that I highly recommend, by the way, called Onion Soup with Dexter Morton. I will definitely put a plug in for him. That was actually the first podcast that I did on Matchmaker FM, was Onion Soup with Dexter Morton. And I loved it. Cool. I love the name of his title of his podcast because onions, layers of the onions. There are many different layers, and it's the same way with understanding the significance of dreams, different categories of dreams, because we could spend a decade here talking about the different categories and different types of dreams, just different intricate webs. But for the sake of answering this question, my perspective is that recurring dreams is like when someone's standing at your door and they're knocking consistently because they want to get your attention. And a recurring dream, especially similar themes, is okay. This is not something that's for the past or, far off in the future. This is a right now thing. It's like if someone's standing at their door and they won't stop knocking, they want you to presently deal with that situation. And it's the same thing with dreams. If there's a recurring dream that keeps coming, that's God, that's the spirit, that's creator, that's higher power, that's your source calling to you saying, okay, there's something important I'm trying to get your attention with that is a now present thing. It's like a present reality that you should look into. And if you don't, it's going to continue to knock until it grabs your attention. That's why I believe recurring dreams come. It's a consistent now thing that wants to grab your attention and say, hey, this is what's happening.
Is this what you do for a living? Do you like take customers or clients on and do you interpret? Not exactly sure exactly what you do. So
It's
could you just give me a little insight of what you do?
Sure, yeah, that's part of what I do for a
Please?
living. Like I'm a Swiss Army knife when it comes to what I do for a living. Like
Yeah, yes, you are.
that's the entrepreneur life in me. Like I left the corporate world a couple of years ago, started my business in San Jose de Cabo, Mexico, one of the greatest places on earth, called the Itinerant Oasis, and that's like a workspace place for people who are podcasters, online content creators, and I manage that workspace / Airbnb space for digital nomads specifically. That is, of course, my one of my main businesses. But of course, with the C-Link, I do take bookings for clients that, all right, I want some more. I want a one-on-one for like an hour, or I want like a session, or I want to invite you for a seminar where you talk to a group of people and I'm going to pay you for this. That is part of what I do for a living, is doing dream analysis or talking on a certain topic. But specifically, since you asked about dreams, part of what I do is someone's like, okay, I need a dream session, a C-Link dream session with Caleb. I've got it advertised on my website, of course, calebmatthews.net, for the C-Link. If someone's like, hey, I want to book Caleb on his Calendly and get a session where he just unpacks dreams with me for an hour, half an hour, 45 minutes, I am definitely available for hire for that. So that is part of what I do beyond the Itinerant Oasis, beyond my public speaking and podcasting and keynote speaking for the C-Link. And I also help my mother run her landscaping business that she still has. So I'm a pretty busy guy.
Holy, are you ever? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a very interesting profession, though, that you're in. And it sounds like your mother is quite cool. I love her already. No, I like the homeschooling thing as well. I think that was a really good thing for her to do.
Yep.
And very good for you guys as well.
100%.
So, Caleb, have you ever figured or thought that dreams could be used for a tool like healing?
Yeah. That's there are many different categories. As I like to say, healing is one of them that I believe that with the invitation, because here's the key, and I'm going to take a risk here because I know like I'm in good company. And here, what I'm about to say, especially with everything I say, what I'm about to say, I encourage my audience, everyone that's listening right now. This is one of the mottos that Caleb Matthews lives by, and that is chew on the meat and spit out the bones. And I say that even within dream interpretation as well. If there's something that resonates with you, chew on it. If something I said is like, I'm not really feeling that, spit it up. And you know what? I take no offense, because one thing I've observed in the spiritual community and the readers and psychics or dream interpreters or motivational people, whatever, is sometimes some people say they try to project their interpretation to get someone to accept, to believe it. You gotta believe it. You gotta believe it. You gotta believe it. For me, I'm going to offer my perspective, and what you do with that is your free will, because I believe one of the greatest gifts that God gave humanity is a free will. Free will is one of the greatest gifts that you have. And so chew on the meat, spit out the bones. So what I'm about to say, I know I'm amongst friends because MJ's got a great vibe. Great podcast, by the way. People keep tuning in. She's got a great vibe. But this is what I'm saying about that. And that is healing dreams, I do believe, are a category of dreams. I do believe that within dreams, that there's an invitation from our higher power and God to co-labor with something that is happening. I don't necessarily believe in trying to force myself into a dream, because I think that we can get out into very weird places in the spiritual realm when you try to like astral project, or like, okay, I'm going to intentionally go somewhere. Like, I just think that weird stuff starts to happen there. That's my personal take. But I believe when God invites us into a dream encounter to partner with something for healing, whether it be for our own healing or for somebody else's, this is where some really cool dynamics can happen. And I'm going to explain more about that. And here's what I mean about that. Years ago, when I was in the Philippines, and I was on a preaching and ministering trip and speaking to groups of people. We're
Mm,
doing many, obviously, humanitarian things and talking to orphans and talking to colleges
mm.
and churches and groups of people. I was at a guest house away from my own familiar environment, and I went to sleep and I dreamed. And I had a dream of one of my mentors at the time and friends from Africa, who I wasn't even thinking about at the time because I was super tired. It was a long, long day of travel, long day of speaking, going to sleep. And I saw my friend in this vivid encounter, and it felt really real. And he's standing there, but he looked like he was very sick. Like, you know, when you see someone and it looked like they just have death on them. He looked very sick,
Yep.
and it looked like he had malaria. I was like, oh no, like, because I know malaria is a big thing in Africa. And so I was like, no, no, this isn't your time. This is your time to go. I rebuke death. I rebuke death, rebuke death. And then I woke up, I was like, what happened? And so anyways, a couple months later, I meet up with my African friend who's from Kenya. He was a leader of many different churches and organizations over there. And I talked to him face to face when I met up with him a few minutes later. And I said, Weston, because that was his name, Weston, during this time, I was in the Philippines and I had this crazy encounter dream, and you were there and I was rebuking death. What happened during that time? He said, oh man, he said, that was during the time where I was going back and forth to the hospital. I thought I was going to die because I had malaria. And like, it was at that time where he was clinging on to life, but God said
Wow.
it wasn't his time. And do I believe that dreams can be used for healing? Absolutely. Whether it's for interceding for somebody else, because most dreams, 98% of dreams are going to be about ourselves. Very
Right.
small percentage of dreams are going to be about other people. That's my perspective. Most of the dreams that I've interpreted over the years, that my team has, family has, people that I've been involved with, most dreams are about the person. But there's a small percentage about other people. So that example was for somebody like me dreaming of my friend. Now, another healing example could be that maybe you dream of overcoming a fear. Maybe there is this overwhelming fear that I have or you have. You're like, I can't get through this blockage. And then you wake up and you're like, oh, I got through it. Or, you know, when kids come to their parents and say, Mommy, Daddy, I had this nightmare. And you teach them, okay, remember in the dream that just because something's happening to you doesn't mean you have to accept it. And this is something my mother would teach me from a young age. If someone's trying to attack you in your dream, then you can rebuke that and say, no, I'm going to release my free will, and I'm going to release healing over my environment
Mm.
and not accept that because that's an encroachment on my boundaries, on my space. And I would encourage you as an audience that your dream realm, this is your space. And if something comes in your space and tries to violate that space, that opposition has no right to be in your space. So I encourage people, just like it says in the ancient text, test the spirits to see if they're of God. And that's one of the things that I highly recommend, especially with seers and people in dreams, is just because someone comes to you in a dream and has a message doesn't mean they're from God or that it's a good thing. Like, make sure you're testing it. Anyways, you brought up some good
That was
points.
excellent. I had to
Yep.
write a few of those points down.
Yep. Yep.
Can you tell us how you distinguish between dreams, visions, even intuitive nudges? Are they different, or are they all part of the same experience, in your opinion?
Yeah. So visions more or less are things that we see like in the mind's eye or through the daily waking hours, and they have their meaning for sure. But dreams are something that happen in that, we go back to what we started off in the beginning, the night season. Dreams are in the night season. It's like, okay, you fall asleep and the next thing you know is, oh my goodness, I'm awake. I'm dreaming. I'm aware I'm dreaming. Or you wake up the next morning and you have the storyboard that's in your head that you remember from the night before. That's a dream. Dreams are more allegorical. They're metaphoric. They're parabolic. Visions tend to be more literal. That is more or less a distinction. You know, I'm not saying visions can't have allegorical meaning, but dreams are more allegorical, Narnia-like, Lord of the Rings-like, very, very much metaphors and parables and mysteries, and they happen in the night season.
So would that mean then when someone has a scary dream or a nightmare, so it either can be something that they picked up during the day, a TV show,
Yeah.
or something in the mind maybe that is maybe even bothering them?
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
You did. Yeah. It would be,
Okay.
there's and this is going back into the categories. This is I love this is because I haven't touched on this yet on podcasting on guest shows, which is great. And that is the different categories. So if something we're seeing something in our dream where we're calling flushing dreams. So say I watch like a horror movie before I go to bed. By the way, I don't like horror movies, but I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah,
Horror
me
movie
either.
before I go to bed, and then I dream about the horror movie. Okay, that's my mind flushing that. It's flushing that. It's a flushing dream. Whereas another type of dream could be a self-conditioning dream where maybe I bumped into somebody on the SkyTrain that is addicted to drugs. And say I had a dream that night where I am like on an acid trip, but I'm not a drug person. Like, okay, what was that, God? Say, okay, well, that's just you're cleansing from like an environmental self-conditioning dream where you picked up on something like an antenna, like tuning into a different radio frequency. And that's why I highly recommend, and here's a little activation I'm going to do for the listeners right now, because I believe in the power of activation. MJ, I feel like you do too. So let's go into an activation here.
Sure.
I would say guard your senses. I cannot stress this enough. Guard your eye gate, your ear gate, your physical senses, but your spiritual senses as well, because that's going to be an antenna and a visual green screen that projects into your dream life. So if I'm trying to ask from God, I want to hear your voice more clear. I want to see a blueprint and a roadmap for my life. It's going to be very difficult for God to speak to Caleb if I'm filling my mind full of garbage. If I'm filling my eyes full of garbage, or even maybe it's not necessarily entertainment, maybe I'm spending too much time addicted, like overkill, like on sports, or like too much time with people and not enough time with meditating, praying, stewing over on dreams, and really chewing the fat. So really guard your gates, guard your time, and guard your gates. I'm going to say that again. Guard your gates and guard your time, because those two things that I mentioned, your gates and your time, are things that every single human being on the planet have been given. We've all been given eyes, ears, and maybe somebody who's blind or deaf might say, well, what about me? Well, if you still have a pulse, then you're still breathing and you're dreaming in the night season. So I don't want to offend anybody, but there's different ways of seeing and hearing, right?
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's good. If you have a pulse, then you're a candidate for dreaming, and you're a candidate for filtering what comes in your senses. And we all have time as well too. We all have time to invest, like a time pie. There's the important, there's the not important, and there's the average. There's the important, the not important, and the average. And what do you mean by that, Caleb? Well, what are important things? Prayer, speaking to God, being in nature, writing, journaling, expressing your design, pursuing your purpose on the earth, surrounding yourself with people and within environments that lift you up. What are the not important things? Oh, I want to win the next pickleball tournament and be the champion in my rec league. If you look back on your life, I don't think that's really important. I think that's a pretty not important thing. And then average, okay, paying taxes. We all got to do it. We all got to pay taxes. We all got to get groceries. Yeah, that's a requirement. It's a necessity. But do I live for paying taxes or buying groceries? No. But I live for seeing the link between my DNA of design and my purpose, and the night season, and guarding my senses and guarding my time is really going to set the playing field, because peace is the potting soil of revelation. Peace,
I love that,
is the potting soil of revelation. When you have peace, when I have peace, when our audience has peace, then just like the nutrients that go into a plant, then the plant of our lives can grow. And if we don't have peace, if our life is full of chaos, I'm not saying that we're not going to go through chaos and everything's kumbaya, but if everything around us is always chaos and we're always busy, then we're not going to get into peace. We're not going to get into REM sleep. We're not going to get into revelatory sleep, and we're not going to be able to actually walk a lifestyle of dreaming in the night season.
Wow, you are one smart man, aren't you?
I try.
I know you have a whole bunch of other stuff too.
Mm.
Yeah, so much. So basically, what do you believe of the afterlife? I'm curious, just out of just between me and you, I am really curious to know what you believe, if there is one or if there isn't, or
Yeah,
if you believe
I
in
do.
that.
I do believe in an afterlife. I believe that there is heaven and there is a hell. There is a place for people that fulfill their purpose on the earth.
Mm.
And I want to tread lightly here because I know our audience is in different places,
Of
but
course.
I do want to answer your question. I do believe in afterlife. I do believe in a creator. I do believe in God. And here's how I want to frame this. I marvel at anybody who has a worldview that believes that this is it. And I marvel because I'm like, that'd be so sad. Like, it's like, if this is just it, and then I clock out and then it's just darkness and nothing happens, then what am I building towards, right? Like, what am I actually, what was the purpose of my life? What is the purpose of actually my walk? And was I created in the design of a creator? I believe that I am created in the image of God, here for a purpose at this time in history to be able to fulfill my DNA of design and speak to
I
people
love
about
that.
reaching the purpose to which they were created. Now, if you're an atheist listening to this, no shame or anything, but I will say this, an atheist and someone who believes in God actually both have faith. They both believe in something. An atheist believes that when they clock out, nothing's going to happen. Someone who believes in God believes that when they open their eyes after they close them, that they're going to stand in God's presence. And I believe in God. I believe in Jesus as my higher power, but I do not adhere to institutional Christianity, because institutional Christianity has butchered the true message of Jesus, which was to bring the gospel of the kingdom, not the gospel of religion, the gospel of the kingdom. And Jesus spoke in parables, which is why I love speaking about dreams and night season mysteries. When he spoke to the crowds, the disciples said, "Master, why do you speak to the crowds in parables?" And he said, "So that seeing them out see and hearing them out hear." Well, that seems kind of weird, until the disciples kept on asking him, "What do you mean by this?" And if anyone's curious about how to practice for interpreting dreams in the night season, go through the Bible and look at every time you see a parable that Jesus taught about the sower, about the parable of the wise virgins and the foolish virgins. Like, these were all things that he interpreted like a dream. Like, they're all
That's a good
dream
reminder. Very good.
allegories and dreams language, but just your life is a parable. My life is a parable. And I do believe in an afterlife. I do believe that when I fulfill my purpose on the earth, when I stand in front of God, he's going to lay out the books and say, okay, how did you steward your talent? Because I believe that that is the main thing that I'm going to be held into account for. What did I do with my grain of sand of time? How did I invest my time? Did I put it in important things or the not important? Did I sow into people's destinies or did I get selfish? Like, that for me is what drives me, is the day that I stand in front of my Lord, my God, my Creator, and say, this is what I lay back on your feet. I have my crown that I cast before you. I'm putting it back at your feet because you gave me life, you gave me breath, and this is what I did with my life. And that's what I believe life is about, is helping people reach the purpose to which they're created. But I do believe that this is not the end, and that is, in the world today, especially in light of recent news and things, like, it can be very depressing when, like, someone's life is snuffed out, and I'm like, well, yeah, like, that person ran their race, but their race is not done, because Hebrews 11, which is one of my favorite scripture verse, that says we are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, and that is what I believe.
And I know what you're getting at there, and wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Cloud
Caleb,
of witnesses.
it's the times we're living in right now. I signed up for this and I can't believe it. I guess I had to be here for a reason, right? We all are.
Yes.
You are incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I know that we're pushing our time.
Sure.
And I took up all your time on dreams because I started thinking too hard. But I'll have to have you back. I want to know more. But what I'd like to ask you is, where can we reach you? Where can we reach out to? And I will have everything in the description below, but I'd like you to talk about it, please.
For sure. Yeah, you can reach me on a few places. First of all, www.calebmatthews.net, that is where my public speaking, motivational speaking, keynote speaking, podcasting business is. The C link, that's my name of my brand. Seeing that link, the C link. You can reach me on there. And then, of course, follow up with podcasts like this. Like I have a whole library of where I've just spoken, who I've guest speaking on. I'll have my own podcast in a few months. But right now, I'm building these podcast experiences with amazing people like MJ on this amazing show. But www.calebmatthews.net, the C link. And of course, you can reach me at Caleb Matthews on Twitter without the E. So Caleb Matthews, that's my Twitter hashtag. Caleb on the Runway, my modeling days, Caleb on the Runway.
Good one.
That's my Instagram. And then the www.theitineratoasis.com. That's where you can see like my San Jose del Cabo hotspot, my digital nomad pad. If you're interested in booking, my bookings are open between the November and April season. And what I'll leave you here at the audience is this, because I always like to leave, if I can, just with an impartation of something to take away from. And that is, I speak to you right now, if you're listening to this, to me and MJ, dear listener, and you want to have more dreams in the night season, I release, just by the Kadosh Ruah Yah, the Spirit of God, the breath of God, an acceleration in your dream life in the night season, that when your head hits the pillow, that you'll be like Jacob of old, that you'll see the ladder between heaven and earth with the angels of God ascending and descending on the ladder, that you'd receive blueprints and codes to be able to decode your life, and that the dream realm would open up to you. And maybe there have been closed doors in the dream realm that you want to open again. Well, I encourage you to just journal, so that journaling would become a great thing in your life, to write down these dreams, so that when your dreams come into your night season, that you be able to run with it, run with those things. So I bless your environment with peace, peace on all borders, that your bedroom and your pillow would be a launching pad and a place of security and rest. I speak a breath of revelation to your senses, your eyes, your ears, your senses, both naturally and spiritually, to hear what the Spirit of life and God, Creator, higher power, is saying to you. And I say this to conclude, that in your dreams, that you receive blueprints to receive in the daytime to apply to your life, that can help you reach the purpose to which you were created in this life. So thank you for having me on the show, MJ. It's been a great honor and a privilege. And may you all accelerate in your dreams. I'm so excited to hear on the follow-up that happens afterwards, because I believe that I have something on my life to share with people and impart, and that when people are around my podcast or my speaking, that the dream life takes off. It happens. So I want to hear some follow-up.
Oh, I can't even wait.
Yeah.
Caleb, thank you so much for being here and to share your wisdom with us today and insights. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey through the mysteries of the night season. If today's episode has sparked something inside you, trust the message your soul is sending. And remember, you are always being guided. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep returning to the truth within you.